The first set was gone. Not just the scoreboard, the belief. Across the net stood an opponent riding the biggest win of her young career. Around the court, the noise kept growing. Every mistake felt heavier than the last. Every rally seemed to pull the dream a little farther away. For a brief moment, it looked as though Alex Eala's remarkable Wimbledon journey was about to end before it had truly begun. It didn't, because what happened next wasn't simply a comeback. It became the latest chapter in a story that had already begun reshaping the future of Philippine tennis. A story fueled by heartbreak, unfinished business, and one question that now hangs over the lawns of Wimbledon. Can the woman who stunned the tennis world once do it again? The answer lies against the most dangerous opponent imaginable. Not just the defending Wimbledon champion, not just the world number one, but a rival who already knows exactly what it feels like to lose to her. And this time, only one of them will walk away with the advantage in a rivalry that refuses to stay predictable. Long before center court filled with anticipation, before cameras followed her every step, Alex Eala arrived in London carrying far more than a tennis bag. She carried the expectations of an entire nation. For decades, the Philippines celebrated sporting heroes in boxing rings and gymnastics arenas. Tennis had never produced a breakthrough on this scale. Grand Slams belonged to distant dreams. Wimbledon belonged to someone else's history. Until now. At just 21 years old, Eala entered the championships as the number 29 seed, becoming the first Filipina singles player ever to be seeded at Wimbledon. But a number beside her name wasn't the real achievement. The real achievement was forcing the tennis world to stop asking whether a Filipina could compete here and start wondering how far she could actually go. The second round provided the answer. Standing opposite her was Australia's Maya Joint, one of the fastest rising names on tour. Confidence wasn't something Joint lacked. She had just defeated Serena Williams in the opening round, a victory that instantly made her one of the tournament's biggest talking points. Momentum seemed firmly on her side. And for the first hour, it showed. Joint exploded out of the gates with aggressive shot-making, heavy forehands, and relentless pressure that pinned Eala behind the baseline. The opening set disappeared 6-3, and suddenly every familiar doubt returned. Was the occasion becoming too big? Had the magical run finally reached its limit? The scoreboard suggested one thing. Eala's body language suggested another. There was no panic, no frustration, no desperate gamble. Instead, something far more dangerous happened. She adapted. The rallies grew longer, but cleaner. The mistakes became fewer. Every point looked slightly different from the one before it. Angles replaced power. Patience replaced urgency. Slowly, almost invisibly, the rhythm of the match began changing. Then the atmosphere changed with it. Court 3 no longer sounded like an ordinary Wimbledon court. Filipino supporters answered every point with growing belief. Australian fans responded just as loudly. Flags waved across the stands. Eala's family and team watched proudly, wearing shirts decorated with the sampaguita, the national flower of the Philippines. What had begun as a tennis match started feeling like something much bigger. Eala fed off every ounce of that energy. She surged through the second set 6-2, introducing a new layer to her game that caught Joint completely off guard. Instead of staying locked in baseline exchanges, she repeatedly moved forward, finishing points with confident volleys and timely serve and volley combinations that stole precious reaction time from her opponent. Joint never found an answer. And by the deciding set, the balance of power had completely flipped. The player who once dictated every rally could barely slow the momentum. Eala delivered 6 consecutive games. 6-0, 1 hour and 58 minutes after falling behind, she walked off the court with one of the most memorable comeback victories of the tournament. But the score alone never explained why that win mattered so much. Its roots stretched back an entire year. On the grass courts of Eastbourne, Maya Joint had handed Eala one of the most painful defeats of her career. Their final ended in a heartbreaking deciding set tiebreak, 12-10. The loss stayed with her long after the match ended. Eala later admitted she cried over that defeat and couldn't even bring herself to watch the highlights for months. Some losses leave scars. Others become motivation. At Wimbledon, she transformed both into fuel. The player who once walked away heartbroken now walked away having closed the match with a bagel set on the biggest stage either of them had experienced. That kind of response cannot be taught. It has to be earned. There was another detail many viewers noticed only after the celebrations began. Resting above Eala's eyes was a custom Nike visor carrying a phrase in Tagalog, Kapag ito'y tumubo, hindi na mapapigilan. Its meaning was simple. Once it grows, it cannot be stopped. Eala later explained that every dream begins as a seed, and bringing a piece of Filipino culture onto one of the world's greatest sporting stages meant everything to her. It wasn't designed as a slogan. It was a reflection of the journey itself. Years of sacrifice. Thousands of unseen hours. A dream planted long before anyone believed it could grow this far. Now that dream stood one victory away from facing the biggest challenge of her career. Because waiting on the other side of the draw wasn't another rising star. It was the woman who has defined this era of women's tennis. While Eala arrived carrying momentum, Iga Świątek entered carrying something even heavier. Expectation. The defending Wimbledon champion had already answered every question critics once asked about her ability to dominate on grass. Early in her career, many wondered whether her heavy topspin game could ever fully translate to the low, skidding bounce of the All England club. She answered by lifting the Wimbledon trophy in 2025. And she didn't stop there. She refined her movement, shortened her swings, learned to take the ball earlier. Every adjustment made her even more dangerous on the surface that had once challenged her most. Her second-round performance at the 2026 championships sent a clear warning to the rest of the field. Former Wimbledon finalist Karolina Pliskova arrived with one of the biggest serves in women's tennis and a style perfectly suited to grass. 69 minutes later, the match was over. No drama, no panic, just relentless precision from the world number one. Yet beneath that calm exterior remained one memory she couldn't erase. Because unlike almost everyone else left in the draw, Alex Eala had already discovered something few players ever do. She had already found a way to beat her. The rankings suggested this matchup should never have been a rivalry. Reality told a different story. Their first meeting came in Miami in 2025, and almost nobody expected what followed. Swiatek arrived as one of the sport's dominant forces, a Grand Slam champion whose consistency had become almost impossible to crack. Eala, meanwhile, was still introducing herself to the wider tennis world. By the end of the afternoon, everyone knew her name. She refused to let Swiatek dictate the tempo. Every return came back with purpose. Every rally became a battle for court position instead of survival. Rather than waiting for opportunities, Eala created them, stepping inside the baseline and forcing the world number one to play under constant pressure. The upset sent shockwaves through the tournament. It wasn't simply another surprising result. It was proof that one of the greatest players in the world could be beaten by someone willing to challenge her strengths instead of respecting them. Champions rarely forget moments like that. Neither did Swiatek. Just weeks later, the tour shifted to Madrid, where the red clay offered completely different conditions. This was her kingdom, the surface where countless opponents had watched their confidence slowly disappear. This time, the script flipped. Swiatek controlled the baseline from the opening exchanges, using heavy topspin to push Eala farther and farther behind the court. Every rally became more physical. Every point demanded another defensive sprint. The freedom Eala enjoyed in Miami slowly vanished beneath relentless pressure. When it ended, the scoreline left little room for debate. The rivalry was level. One victory each. One statement each. Now Wimbledon would become the deciding chapter. Not on hard courts. Not on clay. On grass, where neither previous meeting could fully predict what would happen next. Grass changes everything. The ball stays lower. The points unfold faster. Tiny mistakes become impossible to recover from because there simply isn't enough time. Players who dominate on slower surfaces suddenly find themselves making split-second decisions they never had to make before. That's exactly why this matchup became so fascinating. Swiatek's game has evolved dramatically since lifting the Wimbledon title. She now steps further inside the baseline, takes the ball almost immediately after the bounce, and uses an increasingly effective first serve to seize control before rallies can even develop. Her return game remains one of the greatest weapons in women's tennis. Few players attack second serves with such precision. She doesn't simply return the ball. She instantly turns defense into offense, forcing opponents to play under pressure from the very first shot. Against most players, that approach is enough. Against Eala, it becomes more complicated. Their previous meetings revealed something important. If Eala stays locked in long baseline exchanges, the advantage gradually shifts towards Swiatek's consistency. So the Filipina cannot afford to play predictable tennis. She has to become disruptive. We already saw flashes of that transformation against Maya Joint. Instead of relying solely on heavy baseline rallies, Eala repeatedly attacked the net, shortened points, mixed her patterns, and denied her opponent any comfortable rhythm. That tactical flexibility may become her greatest weapon. Every successful serve out wide open space for an attacking volley. Every surprise approach forces hesitation. Every short point conserves energy while asking difficult questions of the defending champion. There is another shot capable of changing everything. Eala's backhand down the line. Swiatek loves constructing rallies with her inside-out forehand, pulling opponents toward the doubles alley before striking into the open court. But if Eala absorbs that pace and redirects it cleanly down the line, she can instantly reverse the geometry of the rally and place the world number one on defense instead. Those moments may determine the match. Not because they'll happen often. Because when they do, they have to work. Yet tactics alone rarely decide matches of this magnitude. The real battle begins long before the first serve. Inside the mind. Swiatek arrives carrying a unique kind of pressure. Winning Wimbledon once is extraordinary. Defending the title is something else entirely. Every defending champion walks through the gates of the All England club with a target on their back. Every opponent treats that match like an opportunity to create history. Every round brings fresh expectations that have nothing to do with the players standing across the net. Until now, Swiatek has handled that burden brilliantly. But this opponent is different. She has already beaten her once. That memory cannot be erased. No matter how disciplined the routine, no matter how carefully she focuses on one point at a time, somewhere in the back of her mind lives Miami. On the opposite side of the net, Eala enters with an entirely different mindset. Freedom. History has already been made. She became the first Filipina to reach this stage in the Open era. She fought back from a set down. She avenged one of the most painful defeats of her career. She carries a nation that believes anything is possible. Players become dangerous when they stop playing not to lose and start believing they belong. That belief will not be hers alone. Every Wimbledon appearance has attracted louder support from the Filipino community in the United Kingdom. Match after match, the atmosphere around Eala has grown stronger, transforming traditionally reserved crowds into passionate displays of national pride. If she starts quickly, if she earns an early break, if the crowd senses another upset unfolding, the pressure inside that stadium could shift in an instant. But emotion cuts both ways. The comeback against Joint demanded enormous physical and mental energy. So did finally avenging Eastbourne. So did becoming part of Philippine sporting history. Those highs leave a hidden cost. Against the defending champion, there is no time to celebrate yesterday. Swiatek has built a career on punishing slow starts. Give her an opening, and matches disappear before opponents have time to settle. That means Eala's first few games may matter more than any spectacular winner she produces later. She must arrive fully locked in from the opening ball. Because Wimbledon isn't simply preparing another third-round match. It is preparing a collision between the sport's established queen and a challenger who has already proven she can shake the throne. And when those two finally walk through the famous doors and onto the grass, one question that has lingered since Miami will finally receive its answer. There is another layer to this story that statistics can never fully explain. For Eala, this isn't just about reaching the second week of Wimbledon. Every victory sends a message far beyond the grass courts of London.